On today's University of Arizona Futures in Digital Learning podcast, we have a conversation about video use in course design.
I want them to use video as a way to engage and connect with their students from the get-go.
Join Adam Davi and Brian Hale as they discuss best practices for using video in your course, share stories about their design experiences, and provide practical tips for introducing learner-made videos. Welcome, everybody, to the Futures in Digital Learning podcast for the month of April. I'm Adam Davi, a senior instructional designer here at the Office of Digital Learning, and I'm here with my co-host,
Brian Hale, an instructional designer, also at the Office of Digital Learning.
Awesome. And today, the two of us are going to dive into the very hot button issue of video use in online courses. So I'm just going to throw it right out there to you, Brian. How do you use video, or how do you talk to instructors about using video in their online courses?
So the sad part of this podcast is we only have an hour for this topic, but what I say to my instructors is, especially now, it's 2022. We've been dealing with a pandemic for 2 years, and what I say to them is I approach it from two different angles. One, I want them to use video as a way to engage and connect with their students from the get-go. And by that, I mean, put a video in your announcements so that you don't just have this page of text waiting for your students when they get in there. And similar to that, I say, make your lectures a video. Don't just give your students a PowerPoint. Give them a video so that they can hear your voice, they can see your face. So when I say right off the bat, use video in your announcements, one thing I tell my instructors is they don't have to be Hollywood production level 30-second announcements. Please film this thing on your laptop with you sitting on the couch with a cup of coffee, with the cat on your lap, Sunday afternoon, whatever. It's 30 seconds of your time that shows your students that you're an actual person looking at their content, going over it, preparing them for the week that's coming ahead. And it shows that you're a human being. Now, when I suggest to them use video for your lectures, then we want to bump up the production quality a little bit more so that if your lecture is a 10-minute lecture or a half hour, or maybe even an hour, who knows, the production quality is there. We've got their name appearing on the bottom with some colorful graphics. We've got music, maybe some underscoring, some fading in, fading out. Our video team at the U of A does the most creative things, and they do it, I mean, in the blink of an eye. So it's one thing that the instructors don't have to worry about because we offer that service to them. All you have to do is show up and smile in front of the camera. Those kind of things that require a higher production quality to them. That's when you need to be sitting at your desk with a minimal background, no distractions, have really good audio. I also tend to talk to them about the downsides of video. That if you're going to be showing something in a video, make sure it's something that needs a video for it.
Right.
For example, we're doing a podcast right now. We don't necessarily need the video of us talking through Zoom to make this podcast engaging.
Right.
If we were showing a bunch of graphs or pictures relating to video use, I could understand. Let's throw a video tag in at the end. And if you want to, quote, listen to this podcast through YouTube or some sort of video platform, you could absolutely do that. But just doing a video just to do a video, I think, one, it can get old and it can bog down your course with a whole bunch of videos that don't necessarily need to be there.
Right.
I'm definitely all for the videos because coming at it from a student's perspective, I want to see my instructor. I don't just want to constantly read notes from my instructor, And so being able to see them, to hear their voice, to hear their inflection. And one thing that you can't do over text is see enthusiasm, So that's kind of my viewpoint on how I like videos and how I approach it with my instructors. How do you do it? What do you recommend?
So I take kind of a similar approach. I look at it as, what video is necessary for the course? What can you do with video that you can't do with something else? And I sort of frame it as, uh, to start, like let's do a course introduction or some sort of, you know, intro video to the course that is going to get students acclimated, whether that's an interactive syllabus, whether it's just showing students what the outcomes are and the objectives for the course, whether it's taking them on a kind of narrated guide through the course, whatever that may be, and also to show a little bit of your personality as the instructor too, like you mentioned. Show the students that you're a real person and that you're passionate about this course topic, right? You're teaching it for a reason. And so, let's start there, and then let's look at the modules and look at, how can you use video to introduce students to each of these modules or units that you are asking them to go through each week. And so what's a good way to do that? Does it need to be a 30-minute video? Probably not. Can you do it in like a 5-minute video and just, kind of introduce them to the topic and go from there and set the expectations for each week or each module? I kind of help them think through some of those things. And really what I want to try to do more than anything is steer them away from the idea that they have to replicate in-person lectures with video lectures. In an in-person 16-week course, they might be giving 3-hour-long lectures a week. Well, in an online 7.5-week course, you're not going to want to replicate that with videos because students aren't going to watch all of that. And so how can you kind of skip to the good parts, so to speak, with your video, and what is visually stimulating in that medium that you maybe can't replicate with a PowerPoint or with a text or with something along those lines. And then, kind of, talking about chunking it, like, does it need to be, let's say you have a topic you want to talk about and you're like, this is like a 30-minute lecture. Does it need to be one 30-minute video, or can we break it up into 3 10-minute videos maybe, and give the students, some control over their own pacing in the course, things like that. So it's, those are some of the discussions I have with instructors about using video, from their standpoint. And like you mentioned also, the production quality, and we realize maybe not all of our listeners have access to a studio like we do here at U Arizona, but we have some tips and tricks for recording your own remote videos and having to and get yourself set up, and doing some high quality things with even your phone, if that's the case. If that's
Yeah.
the only kind of camera you have, there's ways to kind of amplify the quality on your phone and record some high quality videos that way.
So I want to take just a second. I want to break down three things you said before we
Mhm.
get too far past them.
Yeah.
One, you had mentioned doing a course tour
Yeah.
via video.
Mhm.
And I just want to remind folks who are listening, if you're on the Quality Matters track, wanting to get your course certified through Quality Matters, a course tour is one of the first things
Mhm.
a QM reviewer looks for. And if you do it through the means of video, that is going to save you time instead of doing a bunch of screenshots and typing things out, because you may change up your course every semester, every time you
Mhm.
offer it. And so just doing a quick 1 to 3 minute video of the start here section, here's where to find all of the stuff, that helps your students engage.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned doing module overviews in a
Mhm.
video.
Yeah.
That's another fantastic way, because as the instructor, you get to showcase your passion. You get to lean into the camera and
Mhm.
talk about scenarios you've encountered, why it's important that we're learning
Mhm.
what we're learning this week. And then, as you were saying about taking an in-person lecture and breaking it up for an online class, being able to chunk that information out, obviously, as the instructor, you're going to think all of the information that I give students in my in-person class carries the same weight. So
Right.
I need to give it to my online folks
Right.
too. Yes, comma, however, comma, maybe not in the same amount or in even in the same order.
Right.
So working with your instructional designer, going to them and saying, "Hey, I do these 4 lectures. They're all about an hour long. Um, Help me figure out how I can break them up so that my online students are going to get the same information from them that my in-person folks do. And another thing that this is just kind of recently coming to my mind thinking about is that videos are visual. And how do our students who have visual impairments
Yeah.
absorb the information that we're giving them in the videos? There have been some videos that I've seen in courses where they discuss charts and tables, and it's extremely difficult without a transcript. Now, luckily, if you come to our studio at Digital Learning, we give you a transcript if you record our video for us, so you don't have to sit and transcribe it. One thing I recommend to my instructors, if you're going to do that weekly introductory video, type it out first so that you can copy and paste your text version into a text announcement. And those students that want to watch the video, they can watch the video. The students that want to read it can read it, because sometimes our students may not be in a place where they can watch a video, but they might be able to read the text or the transcript of that video. So those are all like, there are so many spinning plates that you have to have while
Yeah.
thinking of, can I use video or do I have to do it in text?
Right.
So these are all just great ideas.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up, some interesting points on the accessibility side of video, which I think is always going to be a speed bump, so to speak, in terms of using video, because obviously when we have instructors go through our studio, we can proactively caption the videos that come through our studio. But if they're just recording on their own at home, they don't necessarily have access to those types of features and those types of resources. And if a student requests captioning through our disability resources center, they can get those videos captioned for the student. It doesn't always it's not always easy, right?
Yeah.
To get those things. And like you said, kind of thinking about having that own proactive kind of thought before you use video of how can this be kind of universally designed, going back to our last podcast, in terms of how are all students going to be able to access this?
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's important to not just saturate your course with videos, but to have kind of that mix. And that's one of the other things I kind of talk about is to have a variety of different mediums that you're using to connect with students. So maybe you do have some video, maybe you have some audio, some podcasts, or something where students can just listen to something. Maybe it's an interview that you want to have with another faculty member on campus. Does that need to be in video, or can that be in podcast form? Can that be just over audio? And that can be just as engaging as a video, and then maybe there are just some text-based resources that students are interacting with and engaging with. So it's, those are all things to kind of think about and to provide for students, to not just for accessibility, but for engagement purposes as well.
Exactly.
So
one of the things that over in public health, I encourage some of the instructors over there to use VoiceThread. So the instructor puts together their PowerPoint, they upload it to VoiceThread, they go in and narrate it, either audio narration or video. But I'm also encouraging them to shift some of their discussions from the D2L discussion boards into VoiceThread, for the simple reason that these students are at home working through these classes all by themselves. They don't get the benefit of being in a classroom with however many other students. So they also don't get the benefit of seeing how another student would deliver a difficult message to a patient, or how to improve their own bedside manner. So by allowing the students to upload their own voice threads, what I'm hoping is they'll be able to see other students and learn bedside manner from good examples and not so good examples.
Yeah.
And one of the things I hear from instructors is, well, how do I grade that? I don't have time to sit and watch everybody's voice threads for this particular topic. That's an excellent point. How do you grade a bunch of voice threads for your class? You may not have to. Why not let your students evaluate each other on this? Make it a low stakes thing so that you can see, did everybody upload a voice thread? Yes. check, they get a point.
Mhm.
Is everybody responding to at least one other person? Yes, check, they get a point. And let your students sort of evaluate each other on their presentation skills, their
Right.
attire, their how they have their Zoom room set up, for
Mhm.
example, um, and kind of offload that sort of grading onto your students. And then you can focus more on, what their essays look like and what their actual
Mhm.
responses look like. So it's just another way to engage the students,
Yeah.
not so much with the instructor, but with
But
all
with
the
each other.
other students.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
It's interesting you bring up VoiceThread because the first time I used VoiceThread in a course that I was teaching, I was real excited to use it because I had used it as a student before and loved it. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to put this in a course that I'm teaching. It's going to be great. Students are going to interact and with audio comments or video comments, and it'll be so engaging. It'll be great. And the first instance of it in the course, 95% of students responded with just the text message response. And
Okay.
I said, oh, they're not using the video or the audio. Like, why are they not doing this? Like, oh, well, I can take away the text message and force them to use video and
Right.
audio.
Yeah.
And that's something that is an option on VoiceThread. You can do that. But now as we've kind of gone through this pandemic the last couple of years, I've realized that maybe the reason they're not, when students aren't responding with voice or with video on a tool like that, is maybe they don't have access to something like that.
Mhm.
We take for granted that every student has access to maybe a laptop with a camera, or
Yeah.
a microphone, or maybe has a place where they can go. Maybe they do all of their schoolwork in a coffee shop,
Right.
which isn't conducive to recording
Mhm.
any sort of audio,
Yeah.
because it's too loud. So I do think that VoiceThread is a great tool to have to let them use. And the nice thing about that is it's not just the audio or video that the students record, but they can upload a visual
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
with that. And so I think it's important in terms of the universal design and accessibility that we talked about too, and also thinking about students as people, to recognize that maybe not all students will like that, or be able to do those type of assignments in the way that you envision it as an
Right.
instructor.
Yep.
And that's okay. I think it's important that you understand that, but also that you set those expectations and kind of set the stage for students about how they can interact with the tool and how they can interact with each other. I think it's important to kind of bring that side of it up, because I do think VoiceThread is a great tool. And the stuff you mentioned about grading is valid and important.
Yeah.
One question I would mention to that too is, well, how do you grade all of their written responses in a discussion board, right?
Uh,
It's almost just as time consuming, if not more,
yeah.
to do that. So, I'll just say rubrics, rubrics, rubrics.
There you go. Yep.
Maybe that's a future topic for us to get
Oh,
into also,
definitely. I
right?
I love the functionality we have with our rubrics, and we
Oh yeah,
we don't use enough of it.
no,
It is such a time saver for
yeah,
instructors when you have your rubric set up properly.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I kind of thinking about this too, with this idea of voice thread and discussions and things like that. Something that I've been talking to instructors a little bit more about too with video is, if you're noticing something on these discussion boards or in your voice thread, some kind of like universal feedback per se that you're picking up on students, like instead of going through, and I always encourage professors to go through and give as much individual feedback as possible, and make their presence known on things like discussion boards and voice threads. But sometimes you want to just address everybody with something universal, and
Yeah.
that's a great way to kind of insert some video as well, is just to record a 1 to 2 minute little feedback video that you can post either on the announcements, you can post on the board or voice thread itself, that just sort of addresses some of the universal concepts or things that you're noticing throughout that particular assignment. And one, it shows students that you're engaged and you're active,
Yep.
and two, it's kind of a quicker way to get some things across that maybe you're seeing and you're noticing, and that you maybe you want to correct or steer students in a different direction moving forward.
Right. Yeah. What do you think when putting on the instructor hat?
Yeah.
What do you think when you're deciding whether or not to use a video for something? Like you can put together a PowerPoint, upload
Mhm.
it to VoiceThread. You can do a full video through Panopto if you wanted to. Um, are there key words or key topics or key ideas that you think lend themselves more to video rather than reading a passage from a book or a text-based assignment? Or does it kind of vary depending on the topic you're teaching?
I think it kind of varies a little bit in the topic. I have worked with quite a few film courses, and so obviously in a film course you're going to naturally kind of go towards the use of video, and it's hard to not use video in a course like that because you want to show clips, you want to the whole purpose of the course is about film
Mhm.
and video itself. So those type of courses, obviously you're leaning more towards something that is in video. But in other courses, I think it kind of depends. It's hard to say. Kind of, I don't have a good answer for that now. Brian, you put me on
Well,
the spot
well,
here.
no,
So
I think you already answered the question
yeah.
earlier, and it's now processing in my brain. The stuff that lends itself easily to video is like the course intro, the
Mhm.
module
Yeah.
overviews,
Yeah.
a little announcements. You can do video for that no matter what course you're teaching.
That's true.
But when you get into history, art, film, political science, geography, things like that, you may need to take a further step back and go, what is the point of this video?
Mhm.
What do I want them to take away from this?
Yeah.
Am I showing geographic expansion? Am I showing how to use a piece of filming equipment? As a big techie nerd geek guy over here, um, I'm learning a new soundboard for a theater company, and the manual for that is about, if anyone remembers what yellow pages used to look like and how thick they were. It's about half that thickness, so it's maybe about half an inch thick. And I'm just beside myself thinking, why hasn't this company that makes a ton of money selling these soundboards, why haven't they come up with any instructional videos on how to
Mhm.
use this thing?
Yeah.
That way I know, am I pushing the right buttons, twiddling the right knobs? Is this the right input for the whatever thing? Rather than just having me flip through the most boring technical manual ever. It's a sleeping pill. They're making sound equipment, so they must have smartphones.
Right.
Like they could, and there are vloggers out there
Mhm.
who 100% record their content off of their phones, and they have hundreds of thousands of viewers.
Yeah.
So, I always say don't let the lack of webcam on your laptop get in your way of using your phone. Sometimes the phone is even better quality
Yeah.
video
That's
than
true.
what you're going to get out of your laptop.
Well,
So,
and
and it was.
I that brings up kind of another question too, is what do you think about sending students to a place like YouTube for videos? We're talking about videos. We don't
Yeah,
necessarily have to talk about instructor created videos.
sure.
There's thousands of videos out there in the world.
So I have
So,
two different mindsets on that. Number one, because it's YouTube, sometimes they're going to get a commercial with
yeah.
their video. And then the other thing I think about is there is one course that I have been working on, and all of the videos are YouTube videos, not created by the instructor. And from a student standpoint, my thought is, why am I paying to attend this university when this instructor hasn't created their own content at all? They've just curated videos on YouTube. I could do that. If I wanted to learn about this topic, I could go to YouTube and type in whatever keywords I want and learn from these same videos that this instructor curated for me. Why am I, quote, wasting, unquote, my money on this drop? Let me go find an instructor that's actually engaged with their content.
Yeah.
Now, let's go to the flip side of that coin. You have an instructor who doesn't have access to the great studio that we have, doesn't have access to build great videos. They go to YouTube, they find an awesome video that hits every one of the boxes, you know. In that case, absolutely. Let's see if we can use that video.
Yeah.
Are we abusing any sort of copyright issues? I don't know. I'm not a copyright lawyer. I'm not going to touch that question with a 10-foot pole. Um, but I think all the content on YouTube falls under some sort of copyright use at some point. So
Yeah.
you may have to look in the description to find out, can it be reproduced somewhere? Just putting a link in your course to the YouTube content, I think is kind of enough to skate by perhaps, but you'd
Yeah.
probably want to check with your own university's clearance department or
Right.
whoever
Right.
you're to. There is a wealth of information and misinformation.
Right.
So, you
And
know,
well, and that's, I bring up YouTube because that's everybody knows YouTube, right? Or
right.
we assume
Yep.
everybody knows of YouTube or has been there or is familiar with it. And that's, where there is a lot of video content. It's not the only place to get video content, obviously, on the internet. And, and you bring up copyright as well. The libraries, I'm sure at every major institution has access to some sort of video service. We do here at Arizona, where you can get in touch with a librarian. You can find a video on the services that they offer, Canopy, whatever else it is. I blanking off the top of my head, but you can get that, and you can get that link inserted into your course, or that video even embedded into your course through the LMS.
Mhm.
And it's the copyright stuff has been taken care of because you're going through the library. Students have to access that, with a login, all that good stuff. And there's a lot of great information in there, and a lot of great material. And I worked with a history professor who used, clips from various documentaries through the library's streaming services to put in his course. And they're great videos. And he has his own, like you mentioned, it's not like he just went and kind of cherry picked a bunch of videos without doing his own. He's got his own in there too. So it's a mix of him, and then, other videos that maybe you can't, produce as well on your own.
Mhm.
This was a history of Africa course. And so, there's videos of all kinds of footage and imagery from Africa, things like that,
Yeah,
without
what
going
are
there
we going to say to him
yourself.
here?
Yeah.
Take this film crew,
Right.
fly to Africa,
Go
get
there
all the
and
footage
get
and
all this. Yeah.
yeah, no, we
So
can't do that. Yeah.
so it's a great resource. And I think it's that's another thing to kind of think about when you're talking about video in your course, right? Like you said, you don't have to make all of the video that you're putting in your course.
Mhm.
One, that's time consuming.
Yeah,
Two, it's maybe not feasible. And three, it's okay to use other resources out there. And maybe that's
absolutely.
something that, my next question is kind of thinking about, what about students with video? Like, how are they creating or using video in your course? And is that something that's an option for instructors? And like, I'll ask you to put on the instructor hat. Like, what do you think about students either creating or using videos to create content of their own in the course?
So I think it is beautiful and a brilliant solution to the death by PowerPoint.
Right.
In this day and age,
Yeah.
everybody knows how to use PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So, and it's been done so much that I think everybody, when they see a PowerPoint, they just start zoning out
Mhm.
because it's got those bullet points. But with the video, you've got somebody leaning in and engaging, and you can hear the excitement in their voice about the topic. Or you can hear that they don't really want to be talking about this topic. And maybe this isn't the area they're going to specialize in. They're just doing it to get the grade and then move on to the next course, which is what they want to talk about.
Right.
But by allowing them to make this video content, you're allowing them to share and also increase their creativity. So even though they may not want to be doing this, they're going to learn skills that they're going to use later on. Because if you go and look at just how YouTube has just ballooned since the start, I mean, everybody's a vlogger on YouTube
Yeah.
now, even if it's just simple little clips. You know, everybody's on TikTok now. Here's these 20-second
Yeah.
little clips, and um, it's amazing how those clips you put one little clip out there and it blossoms overnight into hundreds of thousands of views. And it's not, I mean, it's a dog jumping into a swimming pool. It's,
Yeah.
you know, I think the more ways we can allow our students to be creative. So let's say you have an assignment that I want you to be able to deliver a difficult message to your patient. There's multiple ways you can do that. You can have them write an essay with bullet points. Here's how we're
Mhm.
going to start approaching this. Here's the intro. Here we're backing it up. Here's our plan for how to get
Mhm.
through this together. Me as the physician, you as the patient, et cetera, et cetera. But we can give them access to podcasting tools through VoiceThread or whatever,
Mhm.
access to the video documentation through VoiceThread. We're lucky enough at U Arizona, we have the Adobe Creative Cloud. So
Mhm.
students can go download Adobe Premiere and make a video. They can download Adobe Audition and do a podcast with it if they wanted to.
Mhm.
But I think nowadays, if you, as the instructor, can put your hat on and go, this is what I want my students to do. This is my
Mhm.
assignment. Are there a couple of different ways that I can get this same result if I have them do a video or a podcast or a written essay? Or maybe I've got that one student who doesn't have the time,
Yeah.
technical know-how. Maybe I just give them a quiz or a test or something. What's the
Yeah.
equality going on?
Yeah. No, I think it's important to give students choice.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's instructors balk at that idea because they're like, oh well, now I'm grading three different types of assignments that are all trying to do the same thing instead of just having one essay or one presentation, things like that.
But
But
as you said earlier, if you have your rubric,
there you go.
you know
There
exactly
you
what you're
go.
looking for.
Well, it comes
You
back to
know,
rubrics.
that's right. Yeah.
uh,
It doesn't
but
matter which way they pick as long as
right,
they're meeting.
they're meeting the requirements on the rubric or the standards set on the rubric. Exactly. So if you set it up where you can just use a rubric to grade assignments in different modalities, then you can provide that choice and give students kind of more of that ownership over their work.
Yeah.
I also want to mention, you brought up TikTok, and I have a colleague who works in Florida, and he has been real active the last few years about using TikTok in his courses and using Instagram Reels in his courses, and how that can be a powerful engagement tool for students. And so maybe for one of our future podcasts, I can reach out to him. He can come on and talk to us a little bit more, but about that topic. But I think it's interesting because that's where students are, right? We
Yeah.
want to meet students where they are,
Yep.
and those are the tools that they're using. So how can we leverage that
Yeah.
for our own courses and to provide that different type of engagement? So I think that's a fun kind of look into what's possible.
Yeah. For it would be awesome if we could invite Dr. Strange
Yeah.
to come talk to us because um, she had a Discord room for her
Mhm.
class to go
Yeah.
and talk.
Yeah.
And that's where students are nowadays. They're
Mhm.
in TikTok and Discord and WhatsApp and all these other places.
Yeah.
Now, the drawback to that, and I think one of the drawbacks to video is when you ask a student to record themselves
Mhm.
or to access your class through TikTok, Instagram, whatever,
Mhm.
when they record video, they're inviting all of these other students into their
Yeah.
safe space.
Right.
And so you're in TikTok, you ask the students to follow you. You can, as the instructor, get to see who is following you. You can also go look at what other topics and other creators your students are following.
Mhm.
So really, they're letting you into their kind of private and personal world. So we
Yeah.
need to also be respectful of that. And what comes to mind is there was and it made the news. There was this actor who sent in who was doing a live audition, and one of the casting directors didn't mute their microphone, and they were talking nonsense about
Mhm.
the room that this actor was in. And the actor overheard them and said, "Hey guys, that's why I'm auditioning. Give me the job and I can get a better background for you." So we just have to
Yeah.
make sure that when we are viewing a student submitted video, that those kind of things, that's not what we're judging. We're looking at the
Right.
rubric kind of stuff. And you know,
Yeah.
I think generally all instructors do, but it's just one of those things that you kind of have to keep in the back of your mind, like, let's not make assumptions. And
Right. And I think that that goes back to, something I mentioned earlier is setting those expectations ahead of time,
yeah.
for what, what you expect of the students, and what kind of expect of the work that they are submitting, or and how they're submitting it. And also, providing kind of some of those avenues to for students to reach out, if they don't feel comfortable,
Mhm.
and that they, that they can, contact you as the instructor, and have that conversation about,
Exactly.
maybe an alternative or something like that. And
Yeah.
there's, lots of different ways that I've kind of been exposed to over the last year, of how to, teach with more empathy in mind,
Mhm.
in those senses. And using things like a liquid syllabus, and you know uh, incorporating some, kind of more of that humanity into, your course, things like that, um, to provide some of those avenues for students, and to really recognize that students are individuals, and they're people. Um,
Yeah.
and I think we talked about the liquid syllabus, actually, I think in our last podcast too, with, when we had, Jessica Zeitler on with us, talking about universal design.
Yeah.
And so that's, it's a cool idea, and I think it's something that's kind of spreading a little bit throughout higher education.
Mhm.
Which is, for those who don't know, a liquid syllabus is less about the kind of nuts and bolts of the course, and more about the humanity of students,
Yeah.
and
What does your student
what
need to learn?
exactly,
Yeah.
you know well, how are you meeting student needs,
Mhm.
kind of outside of the curriculum, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
I think when we talk about setting expectations for the videos, one thing I've seen that I really, really like seeing is when I go into a course and there are external videos not produced by the instructor, that
mhm,
the instructor leaves a little tag on the video. Watch this video from X minute to X minute,
mhm,
because it's important to know this
yeah,
topic, that they set the expectation. You don't have to
mhm,
watch the entire video, but
right,
here's why I've included this video. It's not
yeah,
just some random video to meet a time requirement.
right,
It's because this relates back to learning objective one,
yeah,
or objective whatever. So I think that's also really, really important. Um,
yeah, yeah. That's, no, that's great. And that, for those of you, as mentioned before, if you're on the QM track,
mhm.
that's
Yep.
important too, to to show that alignment.
Yeah.
So, definitely.
And one thing, I did an art class last spring. I can't remember. It was a couple dev cycles ago. I was working with the art instructor, and I had mentioned to her, "Come into the studio. We can record all the videos in the studio."
Mhm.
And she said, "Well, I have all of this stuff in the art studio." And I said, "Oh, well, in that case, let's pack up our
Yeah,
cameras. We're going to do a field trip to the art studio. Don't forget that your video lectures don't just have to be a PowerPoint or a
yeah,
talking head video. If you're going to take your smartphone out with you, go somewhere and do kind of a field trip video
yeah,
that is relevant to what you're talking about. If you want to do a talking head video, maybe you can go down for your government class and just record it sitting on the steps of the Capitol building. And show your students,
mhm,
this is what it looks like from the city that I teach in.
yeah,
There are so many ways to make videos engaging and worthy for your course.
yeah. That's a great example. I think it's, when we talk to our studio team, I think they're always, kind of bringing up the idea of field shoots,
Uh-huh.
with instructors. And, um, I don't think many of them take them up on that, but, when they do it, you often get some really cool, engaging videos for students.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, those are definitely things to think about as well.
Yeah.
This was a great conversation. I think we could go on for a couple more
I
hours.
think so. Yeah.
But, for the sake of our listeners, I think we'll cut it short here, and maybe we'll revisit this topic and kind of maybe we'll explore some of the other ideas that we brought up in
Yeah.
this podcast and some future podcasts. So definitely, if there are things you want us to talk about in any future episodes, shoot us an email. You can find us, online through the University of Arizona through digital learning .arizona.edu. You can find our emails there. We're happy to take suggestions.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this was fun.
Absolutely. It's always fun.
It is always fun.
Always fun.
Yeah.
There is not one of these that I haven't walked away from yet where I go, that was just, I didn't really learn anything. I already
Right.
did that stuff.
Yeah.
The people that we have on our podcast and the discussions that we start getting into, and even when we get sidetracked,
Yeah.
there's always something that I get to take away from this podcast and apply usually later in the day, record it early enough. Or I reach out to one of my instructors and I say, hey, we were just talking about this today and it made me think of you. Give me a call when you have 5 minutes because I have an idea, and that's another great benefit to working with your instructional designer.
Yeah.
The back and forth we just come up with ideas left and right.
Yeah, that's true. And it's fun for us, I think, as instructional designers. And it's also fun for us when we see the passion and excitement that instructors have for their content.
Yeah.
So, we enjoy that. And I'm assuming they enjoy it too, because I can see that enjoyment on their face.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, great. Well, thank you for this this wonderful conversation, Brian, and we'll be back next month to talk about another engaging topic. All right, yeah. So next month we're going to be back to talk about the riveting subject of data-informed teaching practices. So I know
that sounds boring, but not when we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, I know it might not jump off the, jump out of your speaker when we say it, but trust me, it'll be exciting. We will amp it up for you all, for all of our listeners. So yeah, so please join us for that, and keep tuning in every month for our podcasts. And thank you all for listening.
The Futures of Digital Learning podcast is a production of the University of Arizona Digital Learning. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas you'd like to share with our office, go to the Contact Us link on our website.